The Lord has impressed upon my heart tonight to share with somebody that may be struggling, may be going through ministry or life or a job might feel like it's stagnant. I want to talk to you tonight because I believe there are some things that I can share with you based on my experiences that will bless your life. I believe everything we go through is to be a blessing to someone else. And I've been through so much in my life, and I believe that God allows us to go through these things so that we can be a blessing and share what we've gone through to encourage someone else. The Bible says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of our testimony. So let me share with you for just a few minutes some things that I believe might bless your life, some principles that God has blessed my life with. Just early this morning, I was having a conversation with my cell phone, and my cell phone began to talk and preach to me. I know that sounds weird, but let me go ahead and share it. Oftentimes when we deal with our cell phones, because of memory and different factors, they lock up. When you call in, you continue to drop calls and things like that. You call in the technical support and you ask them, you say, I'm having trouble with my phone. They say, first thing they ask you is, are you on it? Because we all know that they can't troubleshoot your phone while you're on the phone. So they ask you, do you have another number I can reach you on? Once they get you off your phone, the first thing they ask you to do is power it off, take the battery out, leave it off for 30 seconds, put the battery back in and power it back on. That's called a reboot. And what that does is it frees up everything that's connected to the network. It allows the network to clear itself from the phone, and by rebooting itself, it reconnects itself to the network. The phone preached to me because oftentimes I realize that in our lives, all we need to simply do is get reconnected. We just need a simple reboot. We have to be disengaged from everything that is around us, and we have to be reconnected to the things that are most important to us. And many of us in our lives, we've had a reboot. And many of us right now, God is saying we need to reboot. We need to get reconnected, resent. He said, I have aught against you in Revelation because you left your first love. And oftentimes we stray. We fall short of the glory of God. We stray from the things that God has called us to do. We lose our affection, our desire, our motivation. And we have to be reunited and reconnected to the things that are most important. Then it began to preach to me again. In the second level of that troubleshooting, if the reboot still doesn't fix the problem, they may have to do what's called a factory reset. Now, a reset is a little different because in order to reset your phone, you have to actually clear all the data that's on it. So all the phone numbers that's in your phone, you're going to lose them. If they're not backed up, you're going to lose them. Phone began to preach to me again because sometimes a simple reboot won't work and we have to go into a reset. And oftentimes in life, this is where we find the most problem. Because many of us, in order to have a reset, God has to actually clean away some of the stuff that's stored in our data bank. We have to get rid of some of that old ideas, some of those old ideologies and old things that have hindered us for so long. Like bad choices, bad relationship, bad situation. You have to be able to let that stuff go. I know, personally, it's easier said than done. But in order to move forward with God, we have to be able to let go of the things of the past. I have a saying that you have to pray for the spirit of goodbye. Because oftentimes in order to move forward with God, you got to say goodbye to yesterday. And there's people in your life and they're in there for reasons and seasons. And once their season is up, you have to love them enough to say, I love you, but goodbye. God will oftentimes have to reset us. And resetting us has to clear away all the old stuff that's been stored in there. Then it began to preach to me one more time. Because a lot of us, we've gone through a reboot and it didn't fix the problem. And then we've gone through a reset. And God has allowed our lives and our ministries to be reset. But there are some times, and this is for somebody in particular, that God has to do what's called a reroute in you. We know that to be something we call a flash. Many of you right now, on the front of your phone, it has a logo that says Sprint. But you're using it on a cricket service. Because you've actually had that phone, what's called flash. The real technical term for that is called a reroute. And what actually happens is you take that phone to a phone shop, and what they do, they actually hook it to a computer and they change the default settings. Preach phone. Because what that tells me is, in order to get the phone to operate on a different system, you have to change all of its defaults. It's more than rebooting. It's more than resetting it. You have to actually change what it relates back to. In other words, you change the software in the phone where it no longer connects when it powers up to Sprint, but it powers up now to Cricket. In order to do that, you have to change its default settings. Preach phone. Because what happens in our lives, sometimes, if we're honest, many of us, we've gone to the altar again and again. We've gone to this service. We've gone to this here. We went to the woman that I loose. Some of y'all been loose for years and years and years. But you keep going back to that same default. Whatever that issue is, that underlying thing that keeps us bound. The Bible says it's the little foxes that destroy the vine. And it said, beware of the sins that so easily beset us. And if we're honest, and the truth of the matter is, many of us, we've fallen to the same thing over and over and over again. And it's not that we don't love God. It's because our factory default is flawed. And we keep going back to that same thing. We keep returning to that same issue, to those same things that continue to bring us down. But God is saying that He wants to set or reset your default. He wants to reroute you. He wants to give you a different nature. He wants to